Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, some of you might be like,
Continuum.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. This is now episode 33. We made it through a rough one last week, but I am so excited to have my guest here with me today from Tellurian, Mr. Kevin Florek.
Yes, you got it.
I got it. Yes.
Practice this.
I did it in my head the whole time. Like,
Florek, yes.
Florek.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm not sure exactly where this is going to go, but let's do this thing.
All right. I warned him that these episodes are unscripted for a reason, so I'm excited to see where it goes as well.
I'm not going to cry. I guarantee that.
I probably will.
She probably will, so we'll see where this goes. So yes, thank you for having me.
Awesome.
This will be fun to do.
Yes, I agree.
I'm Kevin Florek. I'm the CEO at Tellurian. We met a couple weeks ago. And for folks that don't know what Tellurian is or does, Tellurian's been around for over 50 years, and it started in Oshkosh. My uncle started it in the 70s. He was working at the Winnebago Mental Health Center.
Okay.
And people were coming back from Vietnam, and they were addicted to the opioids. Ironically, we're facing that dilemma now.
Right.
And they were being hospitalized they were crazy, but now we know it's post-traumatic stress.
Yes.
So from there, Tellurian has grown and grown and grown to today, where we have about 200 employees.
Wow.
We work with about 8,000 people a year. We have 20-some different programs. We have a full continuum of mental health services and addiction services, and we also offer homeless services too. So we kind of at the top of our continuum is crisis, where people are there, brought in. We've got locked detox. People can't leave. They're brought in by the police, protective custody.
Yeah.
30-day residential treatment. We have day treatment, outpatient, case management. We have workers that go out on the streets and help people that are homeless survive. Yeah. We have psychiatrists who prescribe. We've got doctors who prescribe. So we see a wide variety, a wide range of people that are dealing with mental health and or addiction and homelessness. So
yeah, like how do you see the tie of all of those? How are they all related and all connected?
Well, Tellurian was ahead of the curve. So we went to with our drug and alcohol, we went dual diagnosis, meaning we added the mental health component years ago, and we added the psychiatry piece. And because early on in the AA days, it was, clean and sober, and that's it. And even mental health drugs weren't seen. A lot of times were kind of faux pas. And so our results have gotten a lot better than other providers, because if you come to us, we're going to look at you holistically.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's fascinating that we're partnering up, because what we do well is the drug and alcohol addiction. We work on the mental health issues to get that in order. But then there is what you do, the wellness and the eating, because our folks, a lot of times, when you're in full-fledged addiction, your diet isn't the best. And
right.
So I think it
all just feeds into.
Yeah, so it's cool that our worlds have connected, because I think there's a synergy between what you do and then what we do, and just people and helping them through their journeys of life and that sort of thing. So,
well, and the other reason that, I guess a little backstory of why I even reached out to you guys was because of Krista.
Yes.
She was a guest on the podcast, and she came on and was talking about her story around like sexual assault and mental health. And it was really the first time on the podcast that someone like openly talked about mental health and how far that really took her down that dark path. And it was after her episode where I was like, whoa.
I need to have resources for people. And she mentioned you guys. So that next day I sat down on my computer and I just sent off a message. I'm like, I don't know where this is going to go. I just know that I need resources for the listeners, because the things that we were talking about are very triggering, and I don't want to be like ripping off this Band-Aid and exposing this wound to people and then not having anywhere to go. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, I need to be responsible here and find out about the services in the area. And that's when I
Krista's been a longtime friend of Tellurian and a wonderful person who has dealt with and shared her traumas and dealt with suicidal attempts and some of those type of things. And she's done a wonderful job of healing and growing. And what's cool is she shares those stories because she's, somewhat of a celebrity in town, and it gives people that are suffering in silence hope.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice when people share their struggles, because it's hard to find somebody that doesn't have some mental health, addiction, self-sabotage, trauma, something in their life.
Well, and that's just it, is if people could see like even some of the things that we do every day. I mean, in a way, I could look at exercise as a form of addiction for me. Like, sure, it's a healthy outlet, but at what point, was maybe I'm sacrificing sleep, or I'm injured and I'm still like, I'm needing that type thing. So like, I even have to keep stuff like that in check. But I think we have some of these
Do you have addiction issues?
I mean, I did with food.
With food, gotcha.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm aware of those things and that feeling, that like impulse of like, I have to do this. And so I've had to keep that in check with even exercise. Like, I know it's a healthy outlet for me, but I have to be careful it doesn't swing too far the other way.
Everything in moderation, and moderation. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that when I learn more about what you guys do and loving like that there is that mental health component and the trauma, like, cause that's really when I got into inner child work, it was so much of that, like these childhood wounds and experiencing childhood trauma that was leading into addiction, like filling this void. If there was something that they didn't get in childhood, or they had to learn how to cope by themselves because they didn't have emotional support, how that was creating behaviors in our childhood. And now as an adult, still struggling with some of that stuff. So like, I see it as it's absolutely the work that I do and I'm very passionate about, and just helping give people a voice to share their story and realize like that doesn't define you if you have struggled with that, when you can really look back at your childhood and be like, oh my gosh, I can understand why I turned to food. I can understand why I turned to substances. Like sometimes that pain.
You're dead in pain. And you find that a lot. And the research will show that the trauma-informed therapy, getting the mental health stuff in order and dealing with some of those things really will help with the addiction. Yeah. Because most people just don't go, hey, I want to shoot heroin today because it's fun. They are in serious pain. There's serious trauma. There's mental health issues going on. But what's really cool is the work that you do and the work that our experts at Tellurian does. I went to Ohio State, so you have to forgive my grammar. But the work we do is it works. Yeah. I mean, you're a testament to that. It works. Krista's definitely a testament of the world, and it's bringing healing and hope. And I always like to, when we have talks like this, to let folks know that the work that is, and the experts that are out there, your life can get a lot better. Yeah. And we need to understand that mental health and addiction is a disease. It's not a choice. And there's this stigma. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with saying I'm not okay mentally and going to see a psychiatrist or a therapist. And we need to treat it that way. And I tell people all the time, if you've got hay fever and you take Benadryl, no one's judging you. Right. And it's a medical condition. And maybe you need to wear a mask in the fall when the pollen's bad, or wear a filter, or make some lifestyle changes or some diet changes, mental health's the same thing. You might need meds, you might need therapy, you might need yoga, you might need exercise. So getting that stigma out of the way is really cool. And people like you and Krista are really help with reducing that. So that's cool. Yeah. Well, I've been trying on my healing journey of trying to share the behind the scenes of that. And so I'm pretty active on social media. So my stories is basically like a little reality show. And so I show the days that are not my best, where I'm feeling the feels, and I want to be able to show people like how to move through that and how I can support. So give me an example. I'm not following what you're saying. So you have a bad day and you show it on social media.
yeah, like some of my little stories and kind of capturing little videos, or I'll be talking on there. But
People watch this.
they do actually. Yeah, I know. I was like, I don't know. I got nothing else to do. But
You being grumpy and you film it, you're like, who wants to watch that?
but it's interesting because I think it's amazing, and on those days, how many people reach out and say, me too.
Yeah.
And then they feel seen in their experience or know that they're not alone. And that's why I do that. Like, it's not an attention grabbing thing. It's like, I want people to know that it's not all rainbows and roses every day, but even on the days where it's not, these are the days where I need myself the most. But it's usually on the hard days when we're stressed that we up and abandon ourselves and we stop doing the things, whether it's eating well or exercising or all that kind of stuff. Like, those are the days that I feel like my inner child needs me the most. I had an uncle pass recently, and I was getting ready to record a podcast, and I just had this like overwhelming sense of sadness come over me, where I'm like, I can't record something right now. I can barely even talk. Like, I just needed to cry. And I just like imagined, I call her little Tam Tam, like standing next to me. I was like, my own kid, and saying like, I'm really sad. Like, I need you right now. But I'd be like, no, I got to work. I'll get to you later. I'll get to you later. Just let me finish this. And I was like, no, I need to put this down and be like, you're important. Your feelings matter. And like, had to tend to myself. But it's so common that we abandon that part of ourselves. And so that's where I think of the work that you guys do. And I look at it from just a different angle of an inner child perspective, and ego being what protects. Like, ego is like, yeah, let's, do heroin. Let's, do X, Y, and Z that ends up like hurting ourselves or hurting our family. But it's like, it's all protection for.
They're deadening the pain.
Yeah. That little person. It's like, I don't want little me to feel that. Let's do this instead. And it sounds like a great idea. Like, it's like, yeah, let's do that. Like, for me, I was like, yeah, let's eat an entire pizza in the car. You don't have to feel that. I'm like, okay, I guess that's a good idea, And I'm like, no, that's a terrible idea. But you don't realize it until you kind of come out of it.
Yeah, it's fascinating how the brain works. But again, like we've said, there's hope and healing. And life can get a lot better for people. And life is not roses. Like you said, it's not heaven on earth for sure.
Right. And I think and that's why I love when Krista came on here, and she was so just raw and real and vulnerable. But it's that kind of stuff that gives them permission to do the same. Like, oh, I don't need to like have shame around my story. And I think that's what keeps us silent and keeps us stuck, is the shame.
Yeah.
And so by letting people know, like, addiction's a real thing, and that's a real issue that people have, but here's why. Like, this might go way back to childhood stuff, where now you can have compassion for that version of you that.
Right. No, absolutely true. That's fascinating. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate what you guys do, and just allowing people to share your stories, like the videos that you guys have, and people that work for you that have like gone through the program.
Yeah, we really try to hire folks. We call them peer support specialists that will, that have gone through it and have some time of sobriety and recovery and mental health, and then are able to, it really is cool to then hire somebody, then they help somebody, and it just becomes, really cool process that for folks. And sometimes people really relate well to somebody who's been in the trenches, versus, maybe you and I don't share similar interests, but you meet somebody that's a peer that you have a lot in common. Maybe it helps you with your healing process too. So it's kind of neat. Yeah.
Well, and I know as a dietitian, like, it was really hard. I was working in bariatric surgery where people were really struggling with their weight, and it was really hard for them to open up to me until they heard that I also struggled. And then the walls came down, and then they could open up to me. And so I learned that early on in my career, like, I don't have to come off as this like super duper professional. Like, I can be real with them.
Yeah.
And that actually helps me do my job better, because they're not covering up, because there was so much shame around eating and weight gain and all of that kind of stuff. And so it allowed their walls to come down. And so I find that the same thing with mental health, when I'm sharing the days where I'm like, I'm not okay. And we had a podcast a couple weeks ago where I was not, like, I had a moment where I was like, something came over me, like, I don't want to be here. And it was a very strange experience, but like how my friend was able to come in and just like hold space for me and just be there for me. Like, so we're like, we need to talk about this. Mm-hmm. And that was another instance where I had so many people reach out. Like, I'd been feeling that way too. Like, I was just starting to get really heavy and really dark, and I just needed to know that I'm not alone. And also for the people around them, like, how can you support someone who's in that space? Because if you go in and try to fix them and like, well, you should be doing that, or you're
Yeah, there's experts out there that can really understand that, especially when you're talking trauma, opening up old wounds and discovering things. That's one of the cool things about Tellurian. Our counselors are both certified in mental health and addiction, so dually certified, so we can treat both simultaneously, which really helps. And then you get to see a psychiatrist, our medical director. We have a medical director that's been there for 40 years, and another person who's waiting to be our next medical director. So we have 2 addictionologist doctors on staff, more than full-time. So nurses and nurse prescribers. So we're very medically, psychiatrically, clinically, have a wonderful staff that helps folks that if they need that level of care we're there.
So what about someone who, maybe doesn't need all of the services, but they're recognizing, I do have some trauma, or maybe I had a pretty rough childhood, but I've gotten over it. I moved past it. But really when they look at it's still creeping up in my life. How would someone, maybe they're not struggling with full-on addiction, but there's other behaviors in their life that they want to tend to?
Yeah, well, people go to counseling. Again, if we go back to the analogy of allergies, you could have a little scratchy eye, or you could be stuck inside, heavy meds, miserable, life debilitating. And mental health is the same way. We could see someone who gets Prozac, a small dosage, deals with a little bit of depression, maybe needs to do, couple that needs marriage therapy, or drinks a little bit too much, and work on, maybe we're not going to label you an alcoholic, but we're going to work on how can you drink more responsibly, to somebody who is full-blown, in a psychiatric crisis, who needs 24/7 check, who has suicidal ideation, who needs major medical attention, who might be bipolar. So the whole gamut of services are out there. And again, same analogy as with the allergies.
Right.
Little scratchy.
I love that.
Yeah, a little scratchy eye.
Both deserve treatment. Both deserve to be looked at.
So if you can get by with a little scratchy eye and you're cool, fine. But if it's scratchy eye and it's, I can't, it's make hard to drive, well, maybe you need to get a little tweak.
Yeah.
So, and that's the human condition.
Yeah. Well, and I look at that, again, from the childhood trauma, is there's small traumas and there's bigger traumas. And I have found through this journey and working with people is a lot of people kind of want to dismiss what happened in their childhood if it wasn't labeled as a big T trauma. And I've worked with a woman, she described herself as she grew up in the Leave It to Beaver family, where everything was perfect, but what wasn't there was emotional support. No one talked about anything because there was this image that they had to maintain. And so they couldn't have bad days. They couldn't show, these sad or angry emotions. Everything was swept under the rug. So there was this constant eggshell tension growing up. And she became a massive people pleaser. And in many ways, learned how to take care of everyone else while abandoning herself. And she's an amazing, successful CEO, very overachiever, because that was one way that she received love and attention from her parents. But in doing so, she completely neglected herself. And so she's struggling with her health and with weight and with boundaries and all of these things. And so it was even though she didn't, classify as someone with major trauma, it was the emotional neglect.
Sure.
And so
trauma can take all forms, and trauma's different for everybody. We could have grown up in the same house.
Yes.
And seeing the same traumas, and I might affect me a lot different than it did you.
Yeah.
And, but again, that's the human condition.
Right. Well, what I love about you having that range is you're allowing everyone to validate their story and no, anyone can come through these doors. Anyone can receive help. You don't have to.
Yeah. You don't have to, if you come to a place like Tellurian and, we do an assessment, it doesn't mean you're an alcoholic. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It's just do an assessment, get to the bottom of things, make some tweaks, and then it works. It's a pretty cool place to work, and it's like I said, 8,000 people a year and over 20 programs. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit. How did you get involved?
Well, yeah, great question. So I grew up in a, what did you say, Leave It to Beaver?
Yeah.
Place, Ohio. My dad was a CEO of a very large company, and we grew up in the woods, and I was a great life, and I always wanted to help people. So I thought I'm going to be a police officer. I went to school, went to Ohio State. My whole family's from the Oshkosh area, and we would occasionally go back and forth to Wisconsin. And so I'm in college, and we go to a family reunion. I run into I always thought of it as my crazy liberal Uncle Mike, peace and love, and everybody's great, and whatever. I was telling him I'd like to go to the FBI Academy, but I need to do an internship. And he's like, well, we have a Bureau of Prisons program, and it helps people coming out get reacclimated to society, so they just aren't dumped after 20 years of prison.
Yeah.
I said, oh, that sounds interesting. He goes, and it's paid. I said, done.
Yeah.
So I moved to Madison for the summer. I worked for him, and then something went off in my mind where it was like, man, you hear these stories, and you're like I was blessed to not have a lot of trauma. I was blessed, but so a light bulb went off where it's like, gosh darn it, maybe I'd be doing drugs too if I was sexually abused. If I was physically abused, if I didn't eat for 4 days when I was 3, if I was beaten by my mom, and it was sort of like, or I didn't have a father involved. So a light bulb went off, and like, I kind of want to keep me to make a difference. It's not locking people up. It's let's help people. And from there, I found my niche in life. It's like I'm very blessed to get to help people and build something to try to help more people. And so from there, I did different counseling jobs and maintenance jobs. And at some point, my Uncle Mike, who was the CEO, was like, I really think you've got the heart to run this company. And I said, I do, but I don't have the brains. So I went back to school, and I got a master's degree, MBA in healthcare finance, because there's a business aspect that you have to understand. It's healthcare, it's billing, it's contracts, it's liability, it's all those things. So I went back to school, and then from there, I've been CEO for like 10 years or so, something like that.
What I heard you say, like, I just saw people, like, by locking them up, like, we don't see the human in there, like the person in that.
Right.
Whereas something switched, like, wow, what if I didn't have a parent there? What if I didn't eat for 3 days? Like, you saw them in their story, in their struggle. And
yeah, and it's like, well, wait a minute, shit, that
could have been me.
Could have been me, but by the grace of God, it could have been me. I was blessed, and I always felt like the more you have, the more you have to give. And I have been blessed a lot, and so I feel like I got to give more. And it just, meeting with those folks, hearing stories, and I'm 21 years old, I think I'm going to change the world as a police officer, FBI, and I'm like, wait a minute. So I think it was Martin Luther King who said, it's easy for people to say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but if you don't have boots.
Right. Yeah.
And these folks don't have boots.
You don't have boots.
So, I guess that's the Kevin story of how I ended up here sitting in your, in your studio.
You made it when?
Your studio when four-letter Tammy is, we're doing a podcast on, I want to say Wednesday.
Yeah.
On a beautiful day in October.
We are. Yeah. Wow.
It's got nice.
Yeah.
Good view up here.
Well, that is one thing I'm very excited that we have in common is stories. Because that was the whole reason for this podcast. And I learned that early on in my career, when I shared my story, that's when people opened up, and that's when they could see themselves in my story. And then they were able to feel seen and heard in their story. And so as doing coaching and all of this stuff, I felt that more and more. And then eventually, like, I want to get this out there so more people. And so here we have a podcast. And so for you to have the whole switch just by hearing people's stories. And again, that's everything. When people can just feel seen and heard in their story, like that to me is the catalyst for amazing healing and growth.
Yeah, it's a very good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff because there's hope, and helping people helps yourself.
Yeah.
And it's proven that your body produces endorphins that make you you feel great helping other people.
Yeah.
So it can be a selfish act actually too. So I always tell people, please, if you want to volunteer at Tellurian, it'll be great for us, but it'll be great for you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat.
Well, I already told Lisa, like, sign me up. So
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, and what's really cool about Tellurian, you said I can go off script, whatever.
Yeah,
Here it is.
there's no script.
We've done some really neat things that I'm proud of. In fact, I just talked to he was kind of a mentor of mine, and I'm going to get a little emotional, so I'll try not to. So he, because I'm a man, I can't.
No. Tell them on here you can.
So one of our programs, it's very small, but I don't know, 10 years ago, he was a football coach at East High School, Denny Hill, and he comes into my office and he goes, I heard you and Tellurian don't put up with and Coach speak all the bullshit, and you guys get stuff done, and and we need to help people. And he had lost his daughter to an overdose.
Oh.
And she had a lot of trauma, I think, with, she had a lot of trauma as a little girl, and she just suffered her whole life. Beautiful girl, her name's Chandra. So he's like, we need to make a difference, and I've been all over the place, and no one's buying into what I'm trying to do. And I said, well, and she's been into your programs, and she passed away, and I said, all right. Well, first he tells me the story of how, so he's coaching at East. His daughter had passed a few months ago, and he's going out onto the football field, and he passes out. And he said, you can think I'm crazy. I don't give a shit anymore because life is real and raw.
Yeah.
But God and Chandra came to me and said, I'm at peace.
Oh.
But get yourself up and go help people. So that's why I'm in this office, and that's why you're going to help me make a difference. So I said, done. So what he and I did, mostly him, was we went to all our friends over the holidays, and, instead of you coming over for wine and you bring a gift of wine, whatever, come over to our house. What can you, and we'll, in lieu of gifts, can you give $10 a month? Can you give $20 a month? And we signed up all our friends and his friends. Long story short, we raised enough money and we opened up a house. I bought the house, Tellurian bought the house, for women who are leaving Tellurian, who have a lot of trauma issues and don't have a safe, confidential place to live.
Wow.
Beautiful home, nurturing. You still get to be part of Tellurian. You get, the reduced, very cool. And so he's like, so I tell him this, and he calls me, and I call him, and he's like, dude, we're buying the house. He goes, oh, Lord. He goes, I'm teary-eyed, you son of a bitch, or something. And then I'm like, well, you're teary-eyed now. Guess what we're going to name this house? And he goes, what's that? And I go, Chandra's House of Hope. So I just talked to his wife today. He was in good shape. He was in his 70s only, and he died of a heart attack just over a year ago. But talking with his wife, she still goes there on a daily basis, and she has dinners with the ladies that live there. And it's a small program, but it's just an example of the cool things that happen at Tellurian, because we try to think outside the box, and it's my job as a leader to figure out other ways, because government and insurances do not pay enough for the precious people that we work with. So we are always looking at innovative ways, and one of the really cool stories is it's a house for 5 women, but it saves people's lives.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I was talking to his Gail this morning, and just what a wonderful program that is, and how cool it is for her, because she is the house mom, and she goes there daily. So
Also, what a beautiful way for her to heal and honor her daughter. And what I love about that too is removing the shame around having a child that they lost to overdose. No, we need to talk about this. We need to get this out there. We need to get help and support, because there are a lot of people that want to keep that story quiet. They want to, there's shame around it when
people are dying.
Yeah.
Suicide and overdoses are crushing, especially our young people. And people are suffering in silence, and having warriors like a Denny Hill types and Gail, and saying, I've lost a loved one. I'm going to make a difference with or without government support. Let's rock and roll. We have a men's house too that similar story, similar situation where mom was beside herself and wanted to do the same thing, and she did it on her own. I mean, just so it's really cool to see some of the stuff that people take tragedies and their own trauma and makes a difference, and it helps them heal too. So
Right. Well, and that's a huge theme on this podcast is finding the gift in the painful package. And a lot of people that have been on guests on here, they're making a difference because they found the gift and they worked through whatever pain they were dealt to find the gift. And like you said, I want to now help people. I don't want people to go through what I went through.
Yes.
How can I get out there? And we've had amazing stories on here of the work that people are doing simply because of the way that they grew up and not wanting anyone else to experience that.
no, it's a big part of the healing. And we see, unfortunately, we'll see a lot of people that have lost loved ones to overdoses and suicides. And as I've been in this field for a lot of years, it's almost a crossroad, especially with a child, where you go one of two ways: really, really dark,
Yeah.
or you battle and you go help people and you become an advocate, and it becomes you are going to make a difference so that horrific pain and suffering doesn't happen to other people. And it's almost the key for somebody to just survive the trauma of losing a loved one like that. So
Well, and sometimes it takes one person to see them in that struggle to be able to like just give them a little glimmer of light when it gets really dark like
Yes.
that. You need just one person to really see you can give you enough hope to actually then go get that help. And I lost my father-in-law to suicide. And I think back, like, man, if he would have had a program or service like what you guys offer and to
Yep.
not feel judged, or feel like there was some stigma around going to get help when life was just getting really heavy and really dark. And, and even just the education for a community when something like that happens to understand like where that person might have been.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a little more of a stigma with men than there are with women. Like I jokingly said, I can't cry because that's how we are raised.
Yeah.
So we work on that too, as far as like letting men know that it's okay not to be okay, because it's socially a little more acceptable for you and the girls to get together, have a glass of wine and cry and talk about your depression or your feelings or your whatever's going on with you. Usually guys aren't getting together after golf and watching football and talking about, hey, I feel depressed. I feel like so it's another thing we really try to work on. And what's a couple things we've been very nice and lucky to have. We've had some celebrity type men, like football players and stuff. Brett Favre was one. Don Makowski, who played for the Packers, and some others. Male celebrities will come in and share their stories because, like when Brett Favre, he came a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was right after I met you, and I was like, well, I'm glad I set the bar high for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's all downhill.
All downhill from there.
Yeah, but he came in and he's told some very personal stories about, here's a Super Bowl champion who played, 400 games in a row with never missing, but his addiction and mental health were ravaging him and his family and his marriage. But by him and people like him speaking out, it helps. People like you speaking out, it helps. It's all, and
because otherwise you have this person on this pedestal and think like, well,
the every day is roses, or what do you call it, sunshine and rainbows. And it's not even for Super Bowl champion and football players or
right. Well, and that's also an example of like things outside of ourselves are never going to really fill that void.
No.
And that work has to come from within to realize that we are worthy and like have unconditional love for ourselves. But if we don't, like we are searching for things outside of ourselves, and no amount of Super Bowl trophies is going to fix that.
Well, and I will talk occasionally about Giselle Bunting, who was married to Tom Brady. She contemplated suicide, and she had body issues herself. And here's probably the richest supermodel in the world doesn't believe that she's pretty, and she contemplates suicide. I mean, it just shows you that everybody's got something that they deal with, no matter who you are.
Well, and that's where like I love hearing people's stories, because I want to understand like where did that start for her, because it's likely it was something in her childhood that someone said that made her not feel good enough, worthy
exactly.
enough.
Like you said, a CEO of a company that's very successful. She has a bunch of issues, but it's also it's really cool that people will share that, because you don't think they walk on water and they're just like us.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting how often we walk around our days with masks on, and like put on
Figuratively.
Yeah.
during COVID. Yeah.
Well, yeah, right. Well, that was interesting because it was such a weird time where people like stopped making eye contact and it.
Yep. Well, it was alcohol sales were up 40%.
Yeah.
Drug overdoses were up 40%. Suicides were up 40%. It all rose during the pandemic, and we're still seeing that it's still having an effect on especially the young people because they isolated so long and they didn't leave. They sat on their devices in their room hiding from and not really maturing.
Right.
So
well, and that's where again a lot of the work that I do, like it's about connection, like deep down, like on a soul level, like we all crave connection, and they've even talked about that with, you know, like cancer, like the cell gets isolated, and, you know, and so you can take that on a million different conversations, but you're right, that isolation, like what that did to people. And then it made it hard to, like, how do I reconnect? I remember we got to take our masks up at the gym and we're like, hi, like it was this weird thing, like, oh, we have to like figure out how to do this again.
they'd recognize people. It's like, wait a minute, we've talked before online.
Yeah. But it's interesting of like that initial discomfort, like we kind of have to sit in that to be able to connect with people and connect with whether it's a higher power or just people outside of us. Like we all crave that connection. And I think that's
it's true.
part of where maybe addictions come in. If they're connecting to something, you know, like, well, that food's always there, the drugs are always there, the alcohol's always there, but really like what you're craving is meaningful connection.
Or dulling. But yeah, it's interesting. Very interesting. So what else do you want to know about Tellurian or what do I need to learn about you and the services you provide?
Well, I have really good jazz hands if you need some entertainment.
Yeah.
No. And for me, it was wanting to connect with all of you was, again, just let people know what Tellurian was all about. Because even when I was kind of telling people after Krista's episode, either they didn't know about it or just assumed like it was all about detox. And it was like, once I started research, it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much.
There's so many people. And we even will like reach out to ERs and talk to folks and they're like, oh, I thought you were just detox. So I didn't even know you existed. It's like, no, 8,000 people a year we serve. And again, doctors, nurses, nurse prescribers, master's degrees, state certified counselors, high expertise staff, we see all walks of life that we're able to treat, which is something we're really proud of. But again, it is amazing that people don't know that we're right here in Madison.
And I wonder how much of that is people like they don't want to look at their stuff, right? And so it's like I wouldn't even think to look for a place that could help me if I'm not willing to look at my stuff, unless you're at the end where now it's a crisis.
Right.
Whereas I wanting to use this platform to help people see that it's a little scratch in your eye right now or a little allergy in your eye. Let's work on it now before it becomes this. Yeah. And so like you can deal with whatever's going on in your life, or if there is, some self-sabotaging behaviors or addictive type behaviors, like it's okay to look at that. It's okay to go talk to someone. It's not going to label you. It doesn't mean that that's your new identity.
Correct.
It's a part of you that needs some tending to.
Yep. No, that's totally true. And totally, I'm using totally a lot. Very fascinating. Totally.
I just bring out that youthful energy in people.
Totally. It's like I'm in the 80s, like totally tubular or whatever.
Oh my gosh. I had a sweatshirt that said that on there.
Yeah.
Totally tubular. It was hot pink and neon splatter paint.
Speaking of, I'll try to bring this 80s theme around. So
I have a disco ball if you need me to get it out.
Well, so Tellurian is very dependent on donors because like I said before, we cannot, the lines are long to get help, and the funding does not adequately pay for our fixed costs. It's just basic math. So we do 2 events, which are really cool. Last year we did we call it a Not-a-Gala. Great group of friends and really good folks that I know from Sun Prairie, like, hey, we want to help make a difference, and let's do a gala. And I said, my only request is I hate galas. Let's call it Not-a-Gala.
I love that.
So it's informal, but it was 80s theme. So we had the disco balls and we had the 80s songs, and so we did that a couple years ago.
Play Starship, We Built This City.
Well, yeah, of course, on rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite song ever.
Yeah, and then this year each year we change the theme. So 2 years ago it was 80s. I think last year was 70s. This year is Supper Club.
Ooh.
So
okay.
it's and it's Charlie Behrens is going to do a performance. So the Manitowoc Minute guy and the comedian. So he's going to do that.
Oh,
and then
fun.
the theme will be, we'll do pull tabs and shake of the day and big salad bars and fish fry. And so,
Oh my gosh, I love it.
so we're doing that at the end of February,
That's
which
super
is cool. So that would be a way you could help us as far as
Heck yeah.
helping us get people to come to that event, it'll be kind of cool. What else do you do in February in Wisconsin?
Exactly.
Football's over.
Right.
It's cold.
That's perfect.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Fish fry and
Oh, I love that. I will definitely shout that out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we do that, and then we do a celebrity golf tournament in the summer with a lot of the Packers, which is cool. And so those are our two ways when people say, what can I do to help? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's money.
Yeah.
So anytime we can raise awareness and raise some funds to help more people, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah. And that's what I hope to do with this, and just the work that I'm doing is raising awareness and directing people towards companies like Tellurian. And what I love about when you talk about fundraising and people donating, I think it's easy for people to just like, oh yeah, you hear about it and then you go back to your life. But I think back to you, and when that something clicked, like I want to do something. I want to help.
Yeah.
And for that father too, like I need to get out there and do something, like to not turn a blind eye to this stuff, whether it has directly impacted you or not.
right.
Like to be able to see the human in those people that are suffering, and not, just see someone who's homeless on the street and think whatever you're thinking, like check yourself,
Yeah.
because oftentimes that's our own projections when we're judging someone who's going through addiction or is homeless. It's oftentimes our own stuff, our own insecurities that we're projecting on that person. Really, like that's a person out there. Like this is a cry for help. For someone to be standing on the side of the road, like that takes an amazing amount of courage,
Yes. Or
desperation, or all of
or
things.
desperation, or a major mental illness.
Yes.
That they, and yeah, that's unfortunately we see a lot of that. And with the suicide rates going up, it's a lot of people suffering. Yeah. And the good news is that the work that our staff at Tellurian does and other folks can change that and make life better. And again, you're a testament. Your life is, from what I gathered from your story, you've made big strides to, never to perfection, but probably a better place than you were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's daily work.
Yeah.
And it's not just what I have learned, because there was a certain part of my journey where, again, I was doing the surface level stuff. I was, eating better. I was exercising. I was doing all that stuff. And then there was this whole other layer of like emotionally supporting myself and allowing myself to feel my feelings. And you talk about, the safe place for women. And I think of that from like emotionally safe, because there's one thing to feel like physically safe, but to feel emotionally safe with someone. And I think that's maybe another aspect of Tellurian, is to know when you have staff that have been there,
Mm-hmm.
like you connect with that someone, like you can feel emotionally safe with that person to then open up, to let the guards down. And that's really,
Yeah. Begin the healing process.
yeah.
But yeah.
And it allows people to like, okay, I am ready to look at my story. If I can feel emotionally supported by the people around me, then you can start to feel emotionally safe within yourself to explore
Yep.
some of these feelings you've numbed or suppressed and have felt too scary all these years. It's that emotional safety that can be an amazing foundation for people. And so I want people to know, like, there are places that can provide that, because it's not always your friends and family that can provide that for you.
No. And sometimes it's your friends and family that are making things worse. So it's
Yes.
life is tricky.
Right. That's very much the case. Is
Yeah.
sometimes those go-to people, and again, with the best of intentions, are maybe trying to help, but
They have no idea. Yeah. Stop feeling depressed.
yeah.
Stop feeling anxious. Like, okay, so it's like, that's probably making things a little bit worse.
All right. I remember the classic, just as a dietitian, was like, well, just eat less. Like, ha. Okay, thanks for the great advice. Like, I didn't know that, but like that didn't ever, like, I
So
had a master's.
yours was in eating, you ate too much.
Yeah.
Binge. Okay.
Well, I tried it all. I tried being anorexic in high school, and then I went to the extreme of binging and purging in college, and So
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a very common story.
yeah. Well, and now I can understand that it actually was never about the food. It was about the feelings and what I was trying to numb and suppress with
Yep.
food. And so that was like what clicked, is like, oh, I can't just give people meal plans anymore. It's not about that. Like, I need to know why you need a meal plan. Like, why are we in this situation where food has become the thing?
Yeah. Fascinating.
So,
You're just taking a more holistic approach to wellness.
right. And that's what I love about you guys, where it's not just one thing. Like, no, we're going to look at all of this as a whole. And that's where my career has kind of led me. Like, I can't just give you a workout plan. I can't just give you a meal plan. It's so much more than that. Like, it encompasses every part of you, your whole story up until now.
Yeah. Fascinating. That's really cool. I bet you've helped a lot of people.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
But again, like, this is, I think, work that I'm doing, you're doing to just get the word out there. Like, it's okay to look at your whole story, and that,
Yeah.
for me, like, just handing out a meal plan now feels like a Band-Aid. Like, I'm just covering up
Yeah.
the wound, right? And so, and that's where I love with your guys' programs is you are helping people actually get to the real reason why. It's not just this like in and out,
Yeah.
like you said, like, good luck, okay.
Yeah, no, and try to follow folks and meet people where they are. And everybody's treatment plan is individually tailored to meet their needs, because you and I might come to treatment at the same time, but we don't have the same
Right.
traumas, the same issues. Maybe I'm depressed, you're anxious. Maybe, who knows? And so we really don't, our services are not cookie cutter, which is another reason our successes are so, and outcomes are so good,
Yeah.
to be quite honest. But yeah, it's a interesting business, to say the least.
And I think that's where people need to know that they are going to be met with where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and not judged.
Right. That's the biggest thing. Because again, I think guilt and shame is what keeps people from reaching out and making that step, or just,
Yes.
so if they know, like, hey, you come here and that's not a thing here. Like, you got to leave judgment at the door. Like,
That's right. That's right. That's fascinating. But yeah, so I don't know if people listen, if they hear, but if they don't know Tellurian, we have a wonderful website. I'm going to spell Tellurian because people a lot of times put an M in it, and there's a company with an M on the end, but it's Tellur, as in Ralph, IAN as in Nancy. So it's a pretty comprehensive website. So if you or loved one needs help, Tellurian.org. If you want to donate, Tellurian.org. If you want to come to our Not-a-Gala in February, which is incredible.
because I'm going.
Yeah. Krista goes.
Yeah.
Whether I let her or not, she just barges in and she takes the microphone and
Right.
she's going to tell her story. And she calls me K-Dog and says, sit down and I'm taking over.
I
So,
love it.
yeah, So, but that's on there too. You can click on events. And so all that stuff is really cool for folks that are out there that need help or wanting to help.
Yeah.
We're right here and we need help
Yeah.
and people need help. So
I love it.
sounds like a shirt.
It does. There you go. We're onto something.
Yeah, exactly.
Another great idea.
Yeah, No.
Well, I love that. And so much of what I talk about here is like following the signs or our intuition and the nudges. And again, I just keep thinking back to your story about when something clicked like that. Here's what you thought you should do was go to FBI and be a policeman, but there was something that clicked, and really like your intuition, like something spoke to you, like, oh, wait a second.
Yes.
But so many people are like, well, that's not what my plan was. I should do this. But instead you followed your heart and listened to your intuition, and look what you have done because of it.
Yeah.
More people can trust that,
Yes.
even though it maybe feels uncomfortable, because like you're getting into a world, like you said, like I have the heart, but I don't know this stuff.
Yeah, I was always thinking I'd just have a gun and put bad people away, and then it's like, well, wait a minute. There's a lot of our biggest mental health provider in the country is the jails and prisons, and there's some people that belong in jails and prisons. There's other people that do not, and they're there because they're in a mental health crisis, and it's a revolving door of just you go to jail because you're in mental health crisis and you're not getting your meds, so now you're even worse, and you're decompensating, you're going through withdrawals, you're not getting your meds, and you're released to the streets. Well, guess what? You get arrested the next day and back in there, and it's just it's a bad. Our system is very broken. It's getting better, but it's broken, and that's one of the Dane County is very lucky. We have a sheriff, Calvin Barrett, who's on Tellurian's board, and he really understands the difference between mental health and numerous amount of folks that are just sitting in our jails that are there because they're in a mental health crisis and they did something that they don't even know about, and it's really sad. So he and I partner on a lot of initiatives to try to help get folks out of the jails and get the help they desperately need.
Yeah. I love that.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah. A lot of good people in our community.
Yeah. I am finding that out through just this podcast and networking. And really it was, again, Krista's episode kind of sparked that. Like, I didn't even know. I just started researching like all these places that are out there. And this has kind of been the work that I've been doing. Like, and I had no idea that there were so many amazing places like Tellurian out there. So I was like, okay, gotta start talking about this and anything I can do to get involved in helping.
Yeah. It's because I used to, for many years, I go on, Krista was on 93.1 Jams. And so I would go on every other month and people could call in and we'd talk about Tellurian and mainly joke around. But then she would get calls.
Yeah.
And people were like, I heard your story, Krista. And she would contact me. And then we would get almost every time we get on the radio, 2 or 3 people would end up getting help because of just getting the message out there constantly and being warriors for folks that, what you do will probably lead to folks maybe saving their lives. It's kind of weird how.
Well, yeah, it's been interesting already. Just I call it the little podcast little train. But how many people have said like they started going to therapy after listening to this because they didn't even know, like it wasn't maybe, one example was a woman who her brother has struggled with heroin addiction and didn't ever go to therapy for her because it was happening to him.
Mm-hmm.
But like, no, that absolutely impacted you as well. And
Sure.
so helping her healing process around that. But yeah, she had mentioned like you probably had no idea. I didn't even know she was listening, but here it helped her feel seen enough in her story to realize like, whoa, there's something here that I deserve to have help and support with. So, even if you're not the one struggling with addiction, doesn't mean that you don't need support.
No, that's right. She didn't go down the heroin path. Maybe they both have similar traumas. You never know. But the heroin thing is out of control with the opioids and the fentanyl now. It's killing people constantly. It's horrible.
Yeah.
At our detox, we got a cool grant from the state where it's like the old vending machine out front.
Yeah.
And anybody can go there and get just, like, I remember the cigarette machines back in the 80s or whatever, 70s. You pull a little button and you get free Narcan. So if you, like for that lady, she should have Narcan for her brother because a lot of times it's just a matter of time. So it's a great little service that is available here at our detox center on Industrial Drive, that if you have a loved one that's into heroin,
that's scary stuff.
keep a little Narcan around.
Right. And it's like, it's so sad that that's even a thing, but it's also such a great thing that like, hey, we have to meet people where they're at. And if this is where people are at, we can still save lives with this. Someday, again, when it's roses and rainbows, maybe this won't be a thing anymore. But for right now, it is. And we need to have support for people that are in that kind of crisis and how we can help them.
No, it's that's the world we live in, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing the work that you do.
Well, thank you.
And for following your intuition, because again, that's like what a cool gift that you were given to then now bless so many other people.
You don't really think about it that way, but when you take time to sit down and talk about it, it's kind of
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what another thing about this podcast is all about is trusting those instincts and nudges and know that you're being guided.
Yeah.
I love the story about the coach and how he's like, I don't care, this is going to sound crazy, but this happened. Like, it's stories like that.
He goes, I don't want people suffering. And like I did and my daughter did. And I said, I'm on board. It's just, I follow you. And we did. And I talked to his wife and we're going to put a picture of him up at the house next to his daughter, Chandra. And I'm sure they're smiling down on us right now. And so, really cool that he took that tragedy and just ran with it. And we're very blessed to have a lot of good people out there.
Yeah. Well, and I think the little 2 times that I have met you, and I was even telling Faith earlier just how easy it was to talk to you in that first meeting and just being very, I don't know what the word is, just easy to talk to. And I think that's probably like why you're so good at what you do and why he could feel comfortable coming to you and not being like worried what you were going to think about him having this, conversation with God and his daughter. Like you create a safe space for people to just be who they are. And that's a gift in itself. So
Yeah. Well, for me, I don't like, the government says you can't do it because there's no more money. Well, that's not the end of it. Let's go figure out other ways to skin that cat. Let's raise money. Let's do a gala. Let's talk to friends. Let's get donations here. Let's do whatever we can do to help. But sitting there going, well, there's no more money. People are dying, so you got to do something and be creative. And we've been very blessed to have some donors that have helped us and through our events, and they're fun, number one. Number two, we raise awareness, and number three, we raise funds. So all three are incredible. So you'll
win-win.
If you're coming to the Not-a-Gala, you'll enjoy it.
That's my jam. Fish fries growing up, and
Well,
I grew up
from
in a small
Wisconsin.
town, so
We're going to do shake. Like I said, shake of the day. We're doing pull tabs.
yeah. Well, yeah.
And so we're going to do old fashions and faux fashions. So if people are not drinkers, which we totally respect.
Yeah.
We're going to have faux fashions. So so it'll be neat. We have the really cool different sponsorship levels, like the Shirley Temple levels, and just really getting into that whole embracing our supper club culture of Wisconsin. And you can wear your flannel.
Oh yeah.
Or your hunting jacket.
So great.
I know. But yeah.
Can I just say from an inner child perspective how much I loved the themed things, because again, that gives people this permission to express like this younger, more fun, not going to be judged because everyone's like having an 80s theme and like, I could bring my 80s stuff. Like it just brings out a whole different side of people.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's like it's tapping into their inner child, which I'm all about. And so this is another fun way of like.
Well, we want to raise money.
Yeah.
And we want to do something that's different and unique, because every weekend there's so many great causes and galas, but we're trying to do something that's different where we can have fun. There's no reason you can't help people and not have fun.
Yes,
It doesn't have to be boring. It's raise some money, have fun.
You're speaking my language right now, like, because it's all about, to me, the balance of work and play. And I can be work, Tammy, and professional, but I need to bring out little Tam Tam and do the fun things. And
Who's Tam Tam?
that's my inner child.
Really?
I got pictures of her everywhere. She's over there by my shake. She's on my fridge. So I think about her all the time.
Is that
like,
you up there?
that's actually my daughter, but she does look a lot.
She looks like
me.
I was going to say.
She is kind of a spitting image of me, but
Okay.
so I try to every day, like
And you grew up where? I know you told me, but when we first met.
Bloomington, Wisconsin. So it's kind of my Prairie du Chien and Lancaster.
That's right.
But I grew up on a farm, and
Yeah. What type of farm?
we had dairy cattle until I was in 7th grade, and now my dad has beef cattle and ducks and all that kind of stuff. So
Nice.
got to feed them this last weekend.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you clean any ducks?
I didn't clean any ducks. We fed them.
Okay. Farmers eat ducks.
That's true. That's true.
You know?
Yeah. I don't think my dad has probably eaten all the things, but I don't know about ducks. I'll have to ask him that one.
Right.
But people joke because I used to have a pet raccoon. So
Yeah. That's country living.
right, that's what you do. It was Gertrude, and she was the best.
Yeah. And especially when they were little, you could pick them up.
Yeah.
They get a little bigger than they bite, but yeah.
But she grew up with us from very little, so she was
Did you
pretty
bale
friendly.
hay?
Oh yeah, I actually fell down our hay chute and cracked my head open. So
Oh, there you go.
another story.
Yeah. That explains
Oh
your
my
trauma.
God, it's just-
Brain damage is what this is. Oh, it's all coming clear. It's not trauma.
Oh.
Tam is not have trauma. She has brain damage. She has concussion, CTE or whatever.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's interesting because I think back to that. I'm like, did I ever get any follow-up care? Like,
No.
it's just, that's how it was. We just wrapped. I have a picture, because I think I was in 3rd grade when it happened. And I have this massive bandage around my head. I'm like, I don't remember getting any, like, is she okay after
No.
that? Like,
You didn't have water breaks either.
yeah, right.
Drink out of the hose in the barn, probably, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's all making sense now.
Yes, that was another light bulb moment. It was, she doesn't have childhood trauma. Tam has.
She feels so seen right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh shit, she really hit her head hard, and then
Straight up. Yeah.
it's brain trauma from an injury.
Yeah.
That's your deal. That's your jam. I got you now.
Well, I'm interested. We'll wrap it up on this, but
Yeah.
we're talking about little Tam Tam. So what were you like as a kid?
Outdoors,
Yeah.
hunting, fishing, camping, run, biking, building forts, free. Very fortunate. We grew up in the country, and
Yeah.
we would, my mom would say, we'd go outside, I'd go get my buddies, and we would go build forts and go to the river, and then they'd ring the bell for supper, and we'd be gone for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
That was it. It was great.
Yeah.
I miss those. Kev, my inner child. Those were, no stress, just go play. It was great.
Yeah.
But again, going back to where I was blessed, I could just go play.
Yeah.
A lot of other people weren't playing. They weren't eating. They weren't,
Yeah.
they weren't blessed like I was. So,
Well, and so many kids like kind of had to grow up so fast. Like they didn't even really get to experience their childhood. And so,
right.
yeah. So what do you do now? Do you do some of those things still that you loved as a kid? Do you
Yeah, as
still
much
do
as
now?
I can. I have a cabin up in northern Wisconsin, which is the center of my life. Kind of a third generation small log cabin, which is, I try to get there as much as possible. And then I work out, and not as much as you, I don't think, but a couple days a week for stress relief.
Yeah.
And hunting, fishing, ice fishing, snowmobiling, all the fun. I like doing all that. I love having fun.
That's so, I mean,
Yeah, and it's okay.
yes.
A lot of people feel bad. I'm like, I want to have fun. I want to have fun at work, even though we deal with deep stuff. I want to have fun here. I want to laugh. I want to.
Yes. Well, and I think in your line of work, especially when you're dealing with these kinds of heavy stories, and like you have to have outlets like that to literally, what I say is like time to clear that energy, not carry
Yes.
all of those stories and all of that pain and onto you, because that's going to start impacting your health and your life. And so you have to have those outlets. But
Yes. Especially, I'm shield from a lot of that. Especially the staff that works for Tellurian. They're in the trenches, and that that trauma and those feelings and that energy can go to them.
yeah,
And they take that home. So they have it much worse than I do. I would not be doing justice by saying my job compared to theirs is the stuff the staff that are in the trenches puts up with and deals with, and through their caring and their dedication is
right.
they're the ones that really.
Right. But if you're providing the support for them to be able to also have those outlets, or what, things at work, are the services that they're getting to help
Right.
deal with that. But I think that's such an important message. And that, again, is so much of what I talk about is like staying connected to your inner child. You don't even know maybe you had an inner child. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm tending to him every day, or I make sure I'm doing that stuff that I love.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what allows you to go to work and be so passionate about what you do and to not get burned out, even at the level that you're at. Because a lot of people, when they're there, that's their life, and that can consume them.
Right.
But really, like, you found such a beautiful balance between the work and play. And that's, I think, more of us can do. But you're right, a lot of people feel bad or guilty about that, but that's
Yeah, it's too bad.
And that's when our health fails, because we lost that.
And life is short, so you want to have fun.
Yeah.
You can help people and have fun. You can work and have fun. And you can train yourself to be happier. You can train yourself to have fun. You can go down depression. You can go down that path too, and
Right.
it both can be paths of like a old snowball going down the hill.
Right.
So
And to me, like, I feel like that's because we've disconnected from that part of us that is fun and joyful and wants to play. And so if we can bring that back together, like, that can be a powerful way to avoid that darkness. So you're an example of that. That's very cool.
yeah, I never thought of that, but I feel like we had a little therapy.
I know, right? Look at that.
For Kev.
Little Kev.
Little Kevy. Little
He
Kevy.
feels so seen by you. Like, way to
Yes.
take care of him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I look forward to our relationship moving forward. I think it's really cool the work you do and the people you help. It makes a difference. I think you're a voice for people out there to feel better. And I think having you involved and as a referral source or as Tellurian working in partnership with you can make a difference, even a better difference in people's lives. And I think kind of sky's the limit. So I think what you do is really cool.
Thank you. I love what I do. And it
Yeah.
feels good to be doing work that feels good, and you are helping people. And so, to be able to partner with people like you and Tellurian that are also doing good work to help people like that, just
Yes.
yeah, it feels like I was guided to you guys for a reason. So thank you for your time today and for the work that you do and sharing the message, reducing the stigma, and truly helping people.
Yeah, and again, if people are listening and this spurs them on to want to get help, Tellurian.org, or they can reach out to you, questions and comments.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure to put all your guys' information.
Because usually these things spur some things in people where it makes a difference. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is fun.
Hopefully, maybe I'll see you before February, but otherwise I'll come in my full flannel get up and
there you go. Yeah,
ready for a fish fry.
Your boots and this. Yeah.
We play Boot Scoot Boogie. Is that a supper club thing?
I would think so. Yeah, you've got some country music, the jukebox.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, so it'll be fun, and it's a good cause.
I'll try not to throw elbows.
Yeah.
Stew box is mine.
That's right.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you again. And again, everyone, I'll put all the information for Tellurian in the show notes and all of the social media posts that we'll do to get this episode out there so more people can hear it, more people can know about Tellurian and the work that you guys do.
Awesome. Thank you for the work you do. And again, people want help or they want to help others, please reach out. Hope and Help are just around the corner.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Until next time, do something for your inner child. We'll see you next week.